I can't lie. The start of this game, the beginning of this game, like the pregame, all that stuff, the vibes, they were different. They were high. There was a different kind of energy coming into this game. And we know why. Because 3 was the starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And this is even coming from a guy that wanted to stick with Fields. There's something different. There's still something different that comes with Russell Wilson being your starting quarterback as opposed to a Justin Fields. There's a different cachet because we know the resume speaks for itself. But you had the RUSS pregame interview locked in, focused. You could tell there are some things you can't fake about that demeanor that he was giving off. Like, I know one of the biggest knocks on Russ is that he's a phony. He's just putting it on for the cameras, all that. But his answers in that pregame interview, how he was responding to those questions, there was just something you can't fake about that. He was like just locked in. There was a confidence. There was just a calmness even to him that you can't teach, that you can't fake. The preparation, the mentality going into these type of games that a Russell Wilson brings to the table that a Justin Fields just simply doesn't have yet because he doesn't have the experience. The vibes were different, bro. You had Russ in the block numbers, running out the tunnel. Just the fact, too, that it was a classic NFC matchup from the 2010s, Rodgers versus Russell Wilson, between two greats. And you even had Collinsworth talking about why Tomlin went with Russ. And we didn't even really get these answers from Tomlin throughout the week. He wasn't talking to the local media like this. But what Collinsworth was saying is Tomlin went with Russ because he needs to figure out this quarterback position. And he wants to have a certainty going into the late stretches of the season because he wants to win a Super Bowl. Like this is all about winning the Super Bowl. Which quarterback gives us the best chance for that? Like, let's stop playing around. I want to find an answer. And up to this point, even with Justin Fields going 4-2, he did good enough. He did good, but we also have a Russell Wilson chilling here. Let's see what he's got. I was like, you know what? I like that. There's more of a clarity to Tomlin's decision and why he went with Russ in this game that he wasn't giving off throughout the week. And part of me thinks he just doesn't really like the local media that much and was way more willing to be open to a guy like Collinsworth and a guy like Tirico in the production meetings leading up to this game. Like, that's probably why. But again, all of that was adding up in the pregame. And I was just like, yeah, you know what? LFG, like, let's go, man. Let's go. Like, this is Russell Wilson, man. Like, all right, I'm ready to go into battle with Russell Wilson. Obviously, I'm a fan. I'm not out there, but I'm sure the players, his Steelers teammates, were getting that same sense too. There's just something different about having one of those guys. Now, dude's got to back it up on the field, and it wasn't starting off great. I'll tell you what, because there's one thing to have like an energy, a hype, a belief, but the play's got to back it up at some point. And we got a good, nice little first drive. Ended up in 3 points. But then the next 3 or 4 series, it was looking bad, man. I know all of us were thinking about, hey, do we make the switch at halftime? Is it Fields time? But in the back of my mind, I also thought you got to be patient with this a little bit because Russ hasn't played really since, what'd they say, Christmas Eve last year. Hasn't played the first 6 weeks of this season either. So let's be patient. And Russell Wilson is a second half player to begin with. Like, he's always been that way. Let's see how the game plays out. And how it played out was awesome. Steelers win 37-15. Probably the best offensive performance we've had since Big Ben was playing. I think this was better than even the Mason Rudolph games from last year. Shout out to Tomlin, man. Like, we got to give Tomlin a ton of credit because this was a big decision by him. And this was all on him. He even had his guy, Jay Glazer, talking on one of these pre-games. I think was it on Fox? I think Glazer works at Fox. But anyway, he was on one of these shows today and said that Tomlin admitted that this is all on him. Like, he's the Lone Ranger in this Russell Wilson decision. There was a lot of people within the Steelers organization that wanted to stick with Fields, but Tomlin had the cojones to override it and say, you know what? My gut feeling is let's go with Russ. We at least got to see what a Russell Wilson has. A 9-time Pro Bowler, former Super Bowl champion. We at least got to see what this dude's got. And the risk paid off, man. The risk paid off. I think Russell Wilson's back. I know it's one game and everything. That's all I need to see. That's all I need to see, man, because that's Russell Wilson. Like, I know what he's got internally. I know what he's got mentality-wise, and like just that clutch factor, that never die attitude. We know all that about Russ, but I think the question marks about him going into this season was, can he still play? Like, do you still have the mobility? Do you still have the arm? I still felt like he had all that, which is why I wanted to go with Russ going into the season to start the season, week 1. But obviously he got hurt. Justin Fields played really good. So that's why we were having the discussion that we were having all this week and all the weeks prior of like, who's our quarterback? Should we give Russ a chance? Do we stick with Fields? And listen, he showed he can still play. He showed that he still have it. So he showed that he still has it. So yeah, we're rolling with Russ, man. I mean, I don't even think it's quite. He played awesome. Like, I don't think we're getting that from Justin Fields. The passing game increased a ton, and ultimately, I think that helped the running game out later in the game in the third and fourth quarter. And what I say about Najee, when our offense is rolling, we have momentum. He's the guy that you want. But Russ, dude, hats off to him. What was the final stat line? I know he had 3 total touchdowns, 264 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, 1 QB sneak for a touchdown. I mean, you tell me who was the washed quarterback out there that has a Super Bowl championship to their name. You tell me who that was. I mean, because Russell Wilson, he just had, 264 and 3 total touchdowns, no turnovers. Aaron Rodgers, he had 267, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. Offense for the Jets only put up 15 points. Steelers offense put up 37. You tell me who's washed. Because that was the narrative surrounding Russ going into this season. The funny part about all that, though, is when you compare the 2 quarterbacks, Steelers are only paying Russell Wilson $1 million. We basically got him for free. Whereas the Jets, they traded draft picks to get Rodgers. They're paying him a significant amount of money to be there, and also fired a bunch of coaches. Not only did they hire Hackett to begin with to get Rodgers over there, they hired him. So they're making a bunch of coaching decisions to get Rodgers there, but then they end up firing Saleh 5 games into this season. Saleh and Rodgers only had, 5.5 games? Really, 5 games and 4 snaps as a duo. Didn't work out, and they fired their coach for Rodgers. Whereas we got Russ here for free, and he's just falling in line, man. Like, we got a good structure in place around him. We're not cutting guys, trading guys. In fact, we said our receiver room could use a big upgrade, right? All we got's Pickens. Like, wait, man, who are the receivers? We got a bunch of receivers on the scrap heap over here. Bunch of cast-offs. Van Jefferson, Calvin Austin, Scotty Miller. Who are these dudes? Whereas with Rodgers and the Jets, they just had to trade for Rodgers' buddy, Devontae Adams, all-pro type of dude. You got a Garrett Wilson, first-round pick. You brought a Lazard in over there, Rodgers' other buddy from Green Bay. A Mike Williams, who's a couple-year, 1,000-yard receiver over the Chargers. They had to build everything to help Rodgers out. They had to get all the players there for him to make it worthwhile. Whereas Russ is just, coming here. He's making it work with Pickens as one, and then Van Jefferson and Calvin Austin. He even could have had a better game. He dropped one early on, but He had a nice catch in the second half. But I mean, you tell me who's the washed former Super Bowl champion quarterback out there between the two that just played, Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers. Everyone was telling me it was Russell Wilson, but I mean, made it work with lesser receivers. He's getting paid a lot less than Rodgers. We haven't had any major coaching changes because of Russell Wilson. Didn't have to trade any draft picks to get him. Man, it looks like Russell Wilson's a great value. The dude that's only getting paid $1 million outplayed the dude that the Jets had to trade draft picks for and paying a significant amount of money and had to trade 4 receivers to make him happy and fire coaches and all that. Man, crazy. Absolutely crazy. But who do we got in here today, man? Shout out to everyone in the chat. Shout out to the Steelers for the win. Shout out to Mike Tomlin for making the decision to go with Russ because it absolutely paid off. If we get this Russ for the rest of the season, I mean, we are legit Super Bowl contenders. X Lopez 5 says we owe Russ an apology. Yeah, I mean, I think the mainstream media owes him an apology more. Maybe some Steeler fans do. I never said he couldn't play. I said if we start Russ, yeah, we can win games with him. But I thought with how Justin Fields played, it was a coin toss as to whether or not Russell Wilson would be better for this offense. I think it was a coin toss. I wasn't saying for a fact that Russell Wilson was going to suck or he was washed or anything because just 6 weeks prior going into week 1, I said we should start Russell Wilson over Justin Fields because he gives us the better chance to win games. X Concepts 1 says Russ was always elite. He had a bad season and a half or so with the Broncos. But, yeah, for the most part, for the majority of his career, he has been. And that's why starting Russ made sense. Like, there was a case for Russ, and there was also a case to keep Fields in there. But that was part of it. For the majority of Russ's career, he's been elite. You had some weird years in Denver, a weird year and a half at Denver. Which is the part of his career that's is going to be the case here in Pittsburgh? Is he going to go back to more Seattle Russ, or is it still Denver Russ and his career's over? It's just never going to be the same. We were never going to find that answer if we stuck with Fields. So I think we got our answer though. I only needed to see like 2 or 3 quarters of it. Once we were like midway through the third quarter, I'm texting my buddy saying like Russ is back, like we're good. We're good. Like this is a hell of a performance by him. Steelers guy 638 says he's Steelers Russ. Yeah, maybe it could even be better than Seattle. Off to a good start. 3 total touchdowns, no turnovers. 264 passing yards. Already heating up with that Pickens connection. And that's what I loved about his game here too, man. I mean, you could see the passing game definitely took a better turn. But he just looked really in command of the offense. We were in shotgun a lot more. He was making all those checks, the audibles, the hot routes at the line. And he knew where to butter his bread. He knew what guys to get the ball to. And it's the guys that we've been clamoring for over the last 2 years that we need to get more targets. Pickens had a wide receiver 1 franchise receiver type of game. 5 receptions, 111 yards, 1 touchdown. It could have been better too. That's the other thing. Like he had another pass or 2 hit his hands. Now those were highly contested as opposed to some of the drops that we've witnessed from Pickens over the last like 2 or 3 weeks where they've been wide open. He caught the fundamental ones today. So we'll give him a pass on some of those ones that hit his hands and he dropped because those were highly contested. Those would have been crazy acrobatic type catches. Muth, 2 catches, 51 yards. Darnell Washington got 4 receptions, 36 yards. Calvin Austin had a nice catch in that second half, 36 yards. But also, he dropped that one in the beginning. I was kind of bummed about that because I was on 3rd down. That was a critical play, I thought. Yeah, Russ is back, man. Russ is back. I saw what I needed to see. Like, we know who Russell Wilson is from a mentality standpoint, from a person standpoint, the moxie he has, all that. If you can combine that with the fact that he can still play, then we're good. Like you got Russell Wilson from the Seattle days. And today proved that the dude can still play. The dude can still spin it. And the mobility was pretty solid. It's not on Justin Fields level, but I mean, he was moving pretty good back there. I think he only took 1 sack, right? Yeah, 1 sack. O-line was all right. Like, there were times they didn't do Russ any favors, but he was able to move around in the pocket. It wasn't as pretty as what Justin Fields can do, but still made it work. But the passing game, like, that's the thing. The passing game went up another level for this team, having Russell Wilson back there. And you can argue, I was going to say the running game, let's put it this way. The running game didn't have a drop-off. For the first portion of the game, maybe like through 3 quarters, I think it would have been safe to say that without Justin Fields, the running game took a little bit of a downtick, but we finished with 36 carries, 149 yards, and 2 touchdowns on the ground. Doesn't sound like a bad running performance to me. 37 points. I think the offense is in good hands right now. Does anyone have any complaints about Russ? Is it like, does anyone have any counter takes to what I'm saying about Russ right now? Nate says, man, Pickens has to be happy with those deep ball opportunities. Yeah, even like I said, even the ones that he didn't come down with. One ended up in a pass interference. We were able to get a chunk of yards on, keep the drive going. But there was another like 2, maybe 2 or 3 opportunities that Pickens got out there. And you're right. Yeah, you come down with those. He ends up with what, $160, $170. Steeler fan 1023 says Russ cooked. Yeah, that's probably the simplest and best way to put it. Nate says Arthur Smith deserves some credit too, but Russ Cook, Arthur Smith deserves a ton of credit. So there was conversation around Arthur Smith in the middle of the week based off his answers at the press conference about whether or not he even wanted Russ and how he would respond to that, because he was talking up Justin Fields so highly. But obviously, he put together a great game plan for Russell Wilson in this offense. Yeah, you love to see it. And listen, it didn't start out pretty. I'll admit that. Like I said, there was a point maybe in that second quarter you're like, man, did Tomlin know what he was doing with this decision? Russ is throwing balls in the dirt. He's not even close on some of these passes. We had like, what, 3 and outs in a row. Looking ugly for a minute. But you got to let it play out. If you're making a big decision like this, you can't have knee-jerk reactions. The coffee cup says, give Najee that contract. I mean, he's earning it right now, I got to admit. He's definitely earning it. Another 100 on the ground, 21 carries, 102, 4.9 a carry, and a touchdown. He's earning it. Absolutely. Jaylen Warren, I think this was his best game yet this year, too. A couple catches out the backfield. The one was on a 3rd and long. Russ had to scramble to the side, just dumped it off to Jaylen Warren. He was doing vintage Jaylen Warren stuff. Terry973 says, any concern with Russ against better teams like Baltimore? No, not at all. No, this is all I need to see. I just need to see if it, like, he still had the skill. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's not too old or anything. That his abilities didn't depreciate too much. This is all I need to see. In terms of going up against better teams or big games, anything like that. That's like the last thing I'm concerned with when you're talking about Russell Wilson. Dude's made for big moments. Dude's made for the second half, the fourth quarter, the comebacks. Going up against a guy like Aaron Rodgers tonight on Sunday Night Football. We're talking about Baltimore and Lamar Jackson division games. I'm not worried, man. No, I'm not worried about that at all. He's done it on the biggest of stages. I just want to know if he still had it. Like, if he still had the skill, he still had the abilities. He does. I mean, he showed it in part last year, right? In Denver. Like, they showed his stats at the beginning of the broadcast in Denver, and they're like, "Yeah, he did alright." He still it was still like 26 touchdowns and 8 picks, and the fact that Sean Payton was sabotaging him and they wanted to bench him like 5 weeks into the season. Like, if those were his numbers last year and it wasn't an optimal scenario, then yeah, it's safe to say, or it's safe to assume that he may still have it. There's a good reason for a team like the Steelers to take a chance on a Russell Wilson for $1 million, bring him in for $1 million. It's different than if, we traded draft picks. It's almost like what the Jets did with Rodgers. I think it's a different story. We're trading draft picks to get Russell Wilson. We're paying him 30, 40 million bucks. But yeah, I don't think it was like that risky or anything to bring in Russ for $1 million to see if he still had it, because this is the type of thing that you can get when a Russell Wilson does still have it, even at the later stages of his career, even at 35. If you still got it, you still got the dude that has the heart of a champion in there, man. You know what I mean? It's still Russell Wilson. Like that, the personality, who you are, like that doesn't fade. That doesn't fade. The skills, the abilities do, but it doesn't look like they have just yet. I think we're still good. I think Russ is still there, man. Chelsea asks, what happened to Dante Jackson? Didn't see him in the whole second half. He got hurt. He tried to make a tackle and got hurt. I was wondering the same thing, seeing James Pierre out there as our outside corner, as our CB2 for the majority of the game. I'm like, why is James Pierre out there? This isn't good. This isn't what we signed up for. But actually, I'm glad you brought up Dante Jackson, because I feel like a good segue to the defense. We just talked a lot about Russell Wilson in this offense. I love this defense and I hate this defense all at the same time. It's awesome and annoying. Such a paradox, because you have some series where we're Swiss cheese and getting carved up. The tackling is so bad. It looks like our guys aren't even good enough to be on the practice squad. But then you got your blue chippers. You got your staples like TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, Minka, Highsmith making plays. You get the dynamic play, like the pass deflections, the pressure on Rodgers, the turnovers. Beanie Bishop, bro. Who was expecting that? No one was expecting that. And Rodgers was trying to pick on him too, but Beanie Bishop made him pay. 2 picks, one almost taken back to the crib. Shout out to Beanie, dude. Shout out to Beanie. This was a big coming out party for him. That should build the confidence going forward. Absolutely. And you know what? Like, I thought he was pretty good in coverage today. Like, he wasn't getting cooked. Obviously, he had the 2 picks, but I don't remember him really getting burnt like that. I think the plays that killed us were some of those throwaways from Rodgers where he just dumped it off and Breece Hall's running for 50 yards untouched because our tackling was so bad. It wasn't like Rodgers was carving us up like that on the perimeter and like our corners were getting toasted or anything. So I think Beanie Bishop, not only with the picks, like those are the highlights, but I think he had just a solid all-around game. Peyton Wilson. Yeah, some of our other young guns. Peyton Wilson, he's showing that he belongs. Keanu Benton, he's taking that next step. Patrick Queen, I don't know. I mean, you get your good stuff from Patrick Queen, but then there's other times I'm like, bro, do you need to change your cleats? What's going? Like, you're slipping out there. You're part of the reason why I'm talking about this defense and the tackling being so bad. So mixed bag from Patrick Queen, but obviously he's still an asset to this defense. We got to shout out to Sean Elliott. This dude is wearing the number 25 the right way. He is doing it justice. I think Ryan Clark approves. He's got to be proud of Deshaun Elliott's play. He might be my favorite player on this defense, to be honest. Like, I think he has brought the most bang for his buck, like what we signed him for in the contract. I think we're only paying him like $3 million a year. And didn't we sign him 2 years, $6 million? My God. He's playing like a Pro Bowler. He's unreal. Like, he's making tackles in the backfield. He's been solid in coverage. Like, he deserves a huge shout out. I guess you could say maybe the Russell Wilson contract for $1 million. Maybe that's best bang for your buck if he continues to play like this. But man, Sean Elliott might be the best signing this offseason between, I mean, one of them, at least top 3. But that's, I guess, a salute to Omar Khan for some of the moves that he made this offseason. If we're talking about the Sean Elliott, like, he would probably be the best signing, hands down, for any other team. But with us, if you want to throw the Justin Fields acquisition in the mix for how we got Justin Fields for a 6th-round pick, could be a 4th, signing Russell Wilson for $1 million, signing Deshaun Elliott, getting a franchise linebacker in here and Patrick Queen, the trade for Dante Jackson, like, Omar was cooking, man. Omar was cooking. Refs were terrible this game. Terrible. The leverage call on Minka Fitzpatrick on the block kick, that was terrible. They said you can't use the hands to, like, push down on players to give yourself the advantage, to give yourself the running lane to get to the block kick. I mean, his hands barely grazed the Jets dude as he was flying by. And you heard the expert ref that comes on and gives his take say that, I wouldn't have called that either. And then I didn't like the Ogunjobi call. The Ogunjobi, what was it, like unnecessary roughness or something? Like, dude was just tackling him. Dude. I mean, he went high on the tackle, but it's not like it was a face mask. It wasn't unnecessary roughness. You're just making sure the dude was down. I thought that was egregious. But you know what? After that, because those were early in the game, they weren't too bad. I think I wrote refs were terrible in that first half. I think over the course of the game, it was fine. I don't think it was anything egregious because that was really it. I don't remember any other, like, bad calls, like, egregious calls. Maybe I'm just happy because we won. Like, if it came down to the wire and we lost by a score or 3 points or something, maybe I'd be highlighting those bad ref calls a little bit more and be more pissed off about it. But hey. Yeah, X Concepts says, X Concepts, what's good, bro? Thanks for stopping through. He says GP got slammed down after the play and no call, but somehow Ogunjobi's was 15. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Monster Maze says the refs were horrible. The Jets were getting away with the same things they were calling the Steelers for. Yeah, maybe I'm overlooking that. Maybe I am. I think I was just so happy we were winning in the second half and, playing Steeler football. We look like a team. We look like a legit contending team. 5-2, man. We're 5-2. If Russell Wilson's playing like that and the defense is playing like that, we're good, man. We're right where we need to be. We're in that mix. We're talking about ourselves in the same way as we would whenever we had Big Ben here, man. You felt like you always had a chance. As long as Ben's here, the defense is all right. We got a chance, and I think that's where we're at. Just make it to the dance now. We got to make it to the playoffs. Obviously, winning the North, trying to get the best seed possible is what we should be striving for. But make it to the dance. I think Russ is back, dude. Like, it's not going to get worse because this is my point. Like, I don't want anyone out here thinking that, oh, Deke, you're reaching here, you're going to extremes, like knee jerk reaction. Like, come on, dude, it's just one game. How's it going to get worse? If this was Russ's first game of the season, how's it going to get worse? I don't see how it's going to get worse. I don't. Like, we thought this was going to be potentially the worst game, knocking the rust off. How's it going to get worse? He's just going to be more and more familiar with the system, the players. Maybe we trade for another receiver. How's it get worse? Yeah, I think we're in a good spot right now. Westrick 32 says Jets are a good team, elite D and offense. Yeah, I mean they were favored coming in. They have an Aaron Rodgers. They have weapons on offense. They have a good defense. I just don't think they're a cohesive unit right now. Like, that was a good win. That was really a good win. I wouldn't be surprised if the Jets go on a little bit of a run in the second half of the year and are climbing back into the playoff hunt. I wouldn't. They're not at the right spot right now. Their schedule lightens up, so that was a good win. That was definitely a good win. TX444 says, "Finally a win without it coming to the wire." Actually, this is back-to-back wins without it coming to the wire, because last week, that's how we won too. And remember, I came up on here and was saying, Steelers can win games without drama. Steelers can win games without it coming down to the wire. We just proved we could go back-to-back. Pretty crazy. All right, I think I have one more thing I wanted to add here. You guys got anything else? Anything on Russ? Anything on this defense? I mean, do you think there's a quarterback controversy? Because there's not. You got to go with Russ. There's not even a debate. I want to say this about Fields, though. This could be a good thing for him. This might be one of the best things for Fields. It's not, in his case, it's not how you would want to write it up. Obviously, he'd still want to be out there. But when has he ever got a chance to sit on the sidelines and get like a firsthand perspective of a dude like Russell Wilson operating an offense the way that he just did? And in a big time game, Sunday Night Football against Aaron Rodgers. When has Justin Fields ever had that opportunity? He was thrown into the fire. Well, I guess he sat a little bit behind. Was it Andy Dalton with the Bears? But there's levels to Andy Dalton versus Russell Wilson, and learning behind each one of those dudes. He was basically thrown into the fire in Chicago and said, do your thing. Let's try to figure this thing out together. So he was never really taught. Almost like how Jordan Love was taught by Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers was under the tutelage of a Brett Favre. Even though I know Brett Favre, I don't think was necessarily the greatest teacher, but there is something to be said for just being on the sideline and being around a guy operating at a high level, like a Hall of Famer operating at a high level and running an offense and being in control and being in command the way that Russell Wilson was tonight. There's something to be said for that. Like, I think Aaron Rodgers benefited from that a ton, learning from a Brett Favre. Jordan Love, learning from Aaron Rodgers. You go to 49ers way back in the day with Steve Young and Joe Montana. Like, there is something to be said for that. Definitely. Patrick Mahomes, even with him, like, he didn't jump out of the gates his rookie year and was doing Patrick Mahomes type of stuff. No, he sat behind an Alex Smith, and that's an Alex Smith too. I think this could be a good thing for Fields, man. Like, this is going to be the first time in his career where he's able to take a step back and take on a new, fresh perspective, because he had an opportunity like this just a couple weeks ago against Dallas. Sunday Night Football at home, big game, two big brands, Steelers, Cowboys going up against Dak Prescott, all that. And he took a step back. It wasn't as good as what we were seeing the first 4 weeks from Justin Fields. Whereas he gets to see a Russell Wilson rise to the occasion. Maybe he could learn just some of the little things that Russ is doing from a mentality standpoint, from a leadership standpoint, talking to his teammate, like the energy that he has, the demeanor, all that stuff. I think that's some things that Fields can pick up on and might actually be a good thing for him to be on the sidelines, like for the long-term future of his career. Again, it's not how you write it up in the moment. It's not how you want it, because you want the on-field experience. But sometimes it's not bad to be taking a step back. It's not. You see a Baker Mayfield. You see a bunch of these guys in the league right now, like a Baker Mayfield, a Geno Smith. Going back to the 49ers with Steve Young, like if you go back to the history of that, it was weird because they actually would bench Joe Montana, put Steve Young in for some games, but then bench Steve Young, and Joe Montana like wrote it out for a few more years. And then Steve Young, he had that whole second stint, I think in his late 20s through his 30s, and became a Hall of Fame player. I'm sure he wasn't the same player before sitting behind Joe Montana. I know for a fact he wasn't. He wasn't good with the Buccaneers, but even during that time with the 49ers, maybe he wouldn't be the player in his early 30s to late 30s. Maybe he's not that player if he plays early on with the 49ers and they stick with him over Joe Montana. You know what I mean? There's something to be said for sitting behind legends and learning how they operate. So it's Sam Darnold, Chelson, Sam Darnold. And Sam Darnold didn't even learn behind a guy. Like, he was over with the 49ers. Now, maybe that was the positive moment or the positive, like, turning point for him, being under a Kyle Shanahan and all that. But yeah, I don't think this is like a huge step back for Fields or anything. I think it could be a big positive for his career going forward. But all right, I think that's it for this post game report. Big one for the Steelers. We're right where we need to be, man. Russ is back. I think the Steelers are back. We're 5-2. Hey, man, let's roll. Giants at home next week, Monday Night Football. I don't see why the result can't be the same then. So, all right, I'm out of here. Stay chilling. Have a great rest of the night. Peace. Here we go, Steelers.